This is an orthokeratology case where the patient was initially fitted for monovision, distance in the right eye and reading in the left. Right eye was still a little bit undercorrected, and the patient would like to do both eyes for distance now and just wear readers for near work. So looking at the posterior topographies, they're a little bit irregular. I see kind of a double ring in the right eye, and the left eye doesn't make a complete ring. Centration doesn't look too bad. And when I see patterns like this, I start to think that this is a cornea that started to mold and then didn't mold completely, either because there wasn't enough time or it just can't given the current lens parameters. And I think this is a little bit more common with older patients. The cornea is a little bit less malleable. And my way to address that usually is to reduce the optic zone on the lens, so we're moving less tissue. So I'll bring the lenses up. And so we're at a pretty high demand, 1.97 for a -4.25. Refraction is pretty high, usually around 1.4, 1.5 usually works, but we're still a little bit undercorrected. It's a pretty high curve, and so there's a lot of space, I guess you'd say, underneath the return zone, and we're trying to mold a lot of tissue into it. So the patient did have some glare complaints, I believe, but curiously the vision was better in the dark. So I'm not sure it's pupil related. In any case, reducing the optic zone I haven't really found to really cause much glare for patients. The other thing we can do is turn off the blending, and that will give us a sharper return, and sometimes that gives us a sharper treatment zone on the topography as well. So I'm going to turn the blending off, and I think we're at a 6.2 and 6.8, so I'd recommend dropping it by about 0.4 to 0.5 millimeters. So this will go down to 5.8. And then this is going to go down to 6.4. Okay, so we can see that our power is a little bit higher than before now, so I'm going to reduce that, and we'll go all the way down to our initial, I believe it's 197. Okay, I think another thing that'll help is to lift the bevel a little bit, lift the edge of the lens, so that when the lens does return back down to the cornea, it bears down a little bit more and we get a better seal. So I'm going to lift this off the line just a little bit. And that should give us a nice seal all the way around, maybe a little bit more than we had before. Okay, the center of the lens I think is okay. Looking at the posterior topography, it's a lot of blue peripherally, but I'm not really sure this is where the return zone on the lens really ends. I think it's closer in here somewhere, and so we brought that down a little bit closer to the cornea, and so I think you'll see this entire steeper area shrink a little bit, but hopefully give you a more defined treatment zone and then get you closer to the full correction of myopia that you're looking for. In the left eye, the power is a little bit lower. This was initially the Monovision reading eye. So still at 1.45, I would expect this patient to be pretty close to plano with this lens, but I believe there's about a diopter and a half remaining over refraction. Same thing, it's kind of an irregular treatment zone, so I'm going to reduce this OZ. Five, 8, and 6.4. You can turn the blending off for a sharper return. And then as far as changing the power, we're initially at 1.4. Now we're at 2.4, and now we've got an additional diopter built in, which I might leave if our target is to get both eyes to full distance. So I think I might just leave that there. The tear graph looks a little bit funny there. Let's see if we can find out what meridian is causing that. Looks like that one a little bit does there. So same thing, I'm going to lift the edge of the lens a little bit, and you'll see it drop down. Don't want to lift it too much, because then sometimes that gets the lens to start riding a little bit high. Again, the apical clearance looks okay, and in freeform sometimes it's difficult to get the full touch here without really lifting the edge of the lens. Incidentally, with this type of cornea, I think G-SIM would work okay. I would probably use a G-SIM lens, but if you're in freeform right now, I'll just leave it there. So for both lenses, I reduced the optic zone, got the return curve to bear down a little bit more by lifting the edge of the lens. And hopefully that'll give you a more defined treatment zone and a little bit better post-wear acuity.